Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, with 1.0 coming around the corner, I thought I would dip my toes into a little bit more theory crafting, and this time it's going to be centered around Gathering Storm. If you don't know, Gathering Storm is a new skill coming in 1.0 for all of Primalist, and it has a lot of cool synergies. The main synergy is revolving around Stormbolt and how it interacts with all the other skills in the class. Now, of course, if you haven't already, I would heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that is the best way of supporting me currently and making builds like this possible. Now, of course, for Gathering Storm, the idea is you attack with it a bunch and then get storm stacks, which then expend over the next few seconds, and its frequency increases with each storm stack that you consume or have. And that is cool and all, but it turns out you can use this for a lot more than just Gathering Storm itself. So, for instance, the lightning bolts that tornadoes shoot out, right, are actually storm bolts, and they scale with, of course, Gathering Storm's tree. And if you convert Gathering Storm, let's say per se, to Frostbite or something like that, all of your tornadoes will now shoot out frostbites instead of course, the normal storm bolts. And that is very strong, as it leads me to believe that there might be a really good Tornado Beastmaster or Tornado Shaman or Tornado Druid that's out there. But today we're going to be talking about Tornado Shaman because it has a few things in it that I think will make the build feel a lot better. So let's go in planar and talk about the build, shall we? All right, so here we are in planar with the build. The idea is Tornado Frostbite Shaman. So there's a lot to talk about, so listen up. The first thing is we're building around Gathering Storm. Now, we're not actually casting Gathering Storm. I know, crazy, right? But we're mainly focusing around the cold conversion. So here, Gathering Storm and Stormbolt's base lightning damage is converted to cold, right? Shock chance from all hits on all sources is converted into, of course, frostbite chance. This is important as we can scale our entire build off of this. Now, of course, what's cool is the lightning node here is a stormbolt. Now, it scales with stormbolt stuff. So, for instance, I just I confirmed it with Mike. If we convert Gathering Storm into cold, it means all the stormbolts that we proc will also be cold, and that is really good, and it scales with all the nodes on this tree. So let's talk about more about this tree, right? So we also get cold penetration for frostbite per 2 attunement. Right now I have 93 on this planar. We can get definitely way more if we get some like exalted affixes and stuff like that. But that's 50% attunement, right? I mean 50% penetration right there, which is of course really strong. Then we also grab another 40% penetration here, which is converted to cold penetration if we convert it to cold, right? Then we grab stuff like Stormbolt Chance whenever we expend well, no, not that one. That one doesn't work because we're not actually expending Storm Stacks. But this one here, whenever you hit a boss or a rare enemy with a Stormbolt, you have a chance to cast it again at the same enemy after 2.5 seconds, right? And of course, you have Concentrated Storm as well, which gives us more damage with our Stormbolts, but it reduces the targeting area, which doesn't matter because we're utilizing, of course, Tornado with the the bolt stuff. So we're doing the stereotypical tornado stuff with the double cast. So we're making them all cast storm bolts for us, and then we're doing stationary tornadoes, and then grabbing some mana efficiency and some attack and cast speed. This might not be the, of course, the finished planner for tornado. By the way, all of this is experimental. By the way, I just want to let you know that. But yeah, this might not end up being the finished version, but we'll see what happens, right? Then Maelstrom here. Maelstrom's really cool because if we have three or more three stacks, we actually cast Stormbolt at like three plus enemies, so like 4 enemies. So that's 4 extra like frostbite like shooting things like Stormbolts. That's really cool. That plus tornadoes will make it so we can just casually walk through monos and watch things die, which is really cool, right? And then Warcry is the normal setup for this kind of build. Then Storm Totem, we just use it for the movement speed, right? That's our skills. Now, what's really cool is our gearing and our passive tree. So in Shaman here, we can get a very large amount of mana regeneration. So we can get 24% mana regen with an active totem. Then we can get this node, which gives us 2% mana regen per 3 attunement. So if we look at our attunement here, we have about 90 attunement. So we divide that by 3, which is 30, then times that by 2. So we get 60% mana regen. That is 2 affixes worth of mana regen, right? So if we look at our mana regen here, our attunement gives us a massive amount, just absolutely massive amount, I believe. Yeah, 62% just from there. That is insane. That's like 2 affixes worth, right? And also, as well, in the new patch, we're getting new mana regen affixes. So this is a tier 1 prefix on our staff here that is sealed. That gives us 26%. It can go up way higher, but instead we want cast speed and LE dot on our staff, right? And shock chance. So you want to seal the T1 mana regen. This is insane. This is going to be like meta, like doing T1 mana regen on everything like this, right? And of course, the cast speed, the LE dot, because we're doing an LE dot, and then chance to shock on hit. That's really cool because, like I said before, we're playing a Frostbite build and we're utilizing shock chance from everything to convert into Frostbite chance. So, for instance, we have double invoker static touches, which not only gives us a decent amount of ward, it also gives us a 75% chance to shock on spell hit, which is then converted to, of course, Frostbite, right? That's really good. The shock chance on the suffix of our weapon, we can get shock on hit on our bleeding heart for the leech, right? Then we can get shock on hit with Stormcard Testament, right? So we get 94% shock chance. That's a lot of Frostbite chance, right? Then we can also grab bases like Greatwood Visage with 32% mana regen, and then gloves like Arcane Bracers for 24% mana regen. And all of that combined means that we can get well over 30 plus mana regen very easily with a little bit of effort, right? And that ends up pushing us to the absolute limit in terms of mana regen. We're going to be able to spam like 3 to 4 tornadoes per second without too many issues. We also have a very large mana like battery. So if our mana regen doesn't end up being enough to support our cast speed right now, it's like 137 without buffs and stuff like that, right? If it's not enough, what we can do is every so often, like maybe every 30 seconds, we can transform into Spriggan form and then get all of our mana back and then untransform, right? And then all of a sudden we're back at max mana and we have all this mana regen. So mana literally should not be an issue with this build. I am pretty sure that we might actually need to build more cast speed on this build. We might need to get cast speed on like the Stormcard Testament or something like that. Like we might end up needing way more cast speed. So I was actually thinking about running a swaddling, right? With like even more cast speed. Like I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if we have enough gas speed to make this work. But yeah, like I said, tornado really good with this, right? We're getting 2 tornadoes per cast, and then those are also procking, I believe, this like every third second. So it's like 3 tornadoes per 3 storm bolts per tornado, I believe, per second. And then we get 2 of those per cast. So it's 6 tornadoes. Means 6 storm bolts per second, right? And of course, all of those storm bolts they stack with like Frostbringer and all that. We get an extra repeat chance on 20% chance. So like this is just 25% more, right? All of this combined means that we might actually have way more damage than we need. So, for instance, there's a note here. Excited bolts. Storm bolts now consume a portion of your current mana to deal more damage per 10 current mana. So, right now, we have 573, right? So, if we look over here, we could actually get like about 150% more damage by pressing this node. Now, we will see if like we can sustain this mana, right? Like I think the idea with this is we take this node, right? And this means that we don't need to cast as many tornadoes on a single target to get the same amount of damage, if that makes sense. I will have to fuck with this node when I play it in game. We'll have to see. But I'm really excited to play something like this. I'm not going to play it, of course, day one, but this is like a really cheap setup in general, mainly because like we'd have no required uniques. This works just off of gear on the ground. You'll be able to play it at like level 30 or some shit like that, like level 30, 40, I don't know. Like you can just play like a Thorn Totem build to level 40, then transition into this build. So like I really do think this build might end up being really strong. The only problem I have, I think, with this build is I don't know if the game can handle the amount of tornadoes and Stormbolt procs that we're going to be doing on enemies. Like, I legitimately think that this might be a game chugger. Like this might be like a a chugger, right? We might actually just literally destroy like the video game with this kind of build, right? Like in terms of frame rate, because Ellie already has kind of a problem with frame rate as it is. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, with all that being said, I think this has been Dread. This will be down below. Like I said, this is experimental. If this ends up being asked for some reason, well, just come and tell me, and I'll probably take this video down. Bye.